As we know, the demand for silver has increased due to an ever-expanding list of uses in the market, from healthcare to sanitation, dental, and batteries. David, how do you think this diversity will affect the chart going forward? Thank you. Well, you said a mouthful, so now I'll take the remaining 45 minutes. But one thing to bear in mind is that in the early 2000s, 35% of the silver market was used in industrial applications. And the amount of worldwide silver production was roughly 550 million ounces annually. Today, the industrial use for silver is 60% of the market. And depending on which study you look at, we mine somewhere around 800 to 850 million ounces of silver annually. So think about it. We've almost doubled the amount percentage-wise of silver in industrial applications at the same time that the production rate went from 550 to 850 over that same 20-year time frame. So that shows you what I've said for years, that the uses of silver are multifaceted throughout all sectors, and particularly in technology. So that's kind of the big answer to your question. And how will it affect the silver chart? Well, all markets move at the margin, which means what happens to the other 40% of the silver market? And the answer is really three places: silverware, silver jewelry, and investment demand. The real kicker to drive silver to huge price increases is investment demand. Now, if it were only industrial demand, we might get a chart like we see in palladium, where it goes straight up and then does a half a T. It goes straight up and basically goes sideways between 2,000 and 2,200 USD. But that's because there is such an industrial demand, which is nearly 100% of the market, with a few odd investors here and there, to keep it at that level, because it's absolutely required for catalytic converters. Silver's demand is industrial, as I said. However, it is the people that want to profit from price appreciation, wealth preservation, whatever. So they are willing sellers at some point in time. So I do expect to see something similar to what we saw in 2011, which means we get this huge move up. And as I said in my presentation, I expect this to be the final leg and the most thrilling ride, you might say, for the silver market for quite some time. I think it's far from over, but I don't think we've got another 10 years. I could be wrong. I think we could be looking at maybe a year and a half, 2 years. It could go 3 or 4. The market always knows more than yours truly, but nonetheless, it has accelerated, and we just have to see what the market tells us. So there's that part of it. Hopefully answered that question. And then you wrote another one, and you asked a personal question I'm not going to answer. No, I'm joking. David, would you sell your physical silver before or after silver peaks? Well, I'm going to adhere to some of the principles in that book that I outlined called Second Chance. I will be selling in tranches on the way up. I'm not going to get that greedy. I don't know what those numbers are yet, because I look at the market technically and fundamentally. And also I have an advantage that some don't, because I am in the position I'm in. I will able to see what my database looks like and how many new subscribers I'm getting. And when those start to go parabolic, I know we're probably getting near the top, which means I'll probably start to filter out. So for an example, I might get out at 80, 90, 100, 110, and just filter out that way. I will keep some for my daughters to pass on, just because their dad has been so involved in the silver market. So I don't plan on selling it at all. But that's a rough outline. Of course, I will be providing that information privately to my paid members. And as I did last time, when I see the tippy top, after I have put out an alert for my paid members, probably within a few days or a week or two, I will announce that I called the top. I've been very lucky, skillful, or both. So far, I've gotten I've gotten all the tops actually correct in this move, but my bottom calls have not been as good, and I absolutely admit that. So the remaining amount of questions are actually quite a few. This one is from Richard. It's addressed to EnviroLeach. And so I guess you're going to unmute Dwayne. As an environmental chemist, I think the idea is great. But as an investor, looking at the share performance, it's rather poor for the last 12 months. Can we get some reasons for this?
Yes, Richard, it's a good question. But I think what happens is when you have something that's such a disruptive technology, I think what happens is the market responds favorably, and then they look for validation. And, this has been 3 years in the making, but in 3 years we've accomplished, and I'm so proud of my team, we've accomplished more. I mean, we look at the product that we've developed in 3 years for less than $23 million. It's phenomenal. I think what we need now is, we're focusing on it now, is validation with strong, large partners, whether they're recyclers or OEMs on the EWaste side, and strong performance and partnerships and announcements on the mining side. And I think that'll help validate. When I go to do a presentation to institutions, inevitably almost every question is that it almost sounds too good to be true. So it's really going to have to be up to us to bring on third-party validation. And that's what we're focusing on right now.
All right, next up is, again, to EnviroLeach. Some of your assertions considering alternative technologies are not quite accurate. I guess Omineca has been in the business for more than a decade and has very environmentally friendly operation in Europe. Comments, and there's another part to this. Still, for North America, you might be onto something. What are the real costs, including shipping, crushing, sampling, assaying, dissolution, and recovery? So both those questions, hopefully you can keep them both in mind, Dwayne.
Yeah, I'll try to be as quick as I can. We're in discussions with Omineca, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. But Omineca is a smelter. They've always been a smelter. They will always be a smelter. Just because somebody puts green technology on the top of their stack and removes the filtrate from coming out, when you burn this product, you are producing carbon dioxide. 75% makeup is carbon. You have no choice but to produce carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide. Our process, we reuse that material, is repurposed either into asphalt, concrete, other types of building material. It's mixed with plastic and made into pallets. So it really is a true zero environmental footprint. There's no solution down the drain. There's nothing going to the dump. So what was the other portion of that question, David?
Oh, let me go back. You just answered the other one, is if printed circuit boards are not burned and not landfill, where do they end up? And you just said that. Let me go back and look.
Oh, the economics, yeah.
The other part was still for North America, you might be onto something. What are the real costs, including shipping, crushing, sampling, assaying, dissolution, and recovery?
All right. So he's talking about e-waste right now. Yeah, North America, 600,000 tons of printed circuit boards. We would be the only domestic solution. So I think there's a real chance that the government inhibiting the amount of e-waste, and it's happening every day, in reducing the amount of e-waste that's actually exported from the United States. Our costs to process they're small enough that we can compete directly with the smelters and sell less than the smelters and still be profitable. Although our primary market are the people who cannot sell to smelters. They're selling to aggregators. We want to be those aggregators. But our costs are significantly less than other types of extraction processes. So anyways, the point is we can be competitive. We've just completed a 190,000 ton test for Jabil. We've been working with them for a number of years, and the economics were very favorable.
Looks like you're on a streak here. How much, I'm sure this is the in situ part, how much permeability do they need to solution mine gold?
Yeah, that's a good question. The good part of this is in situ mining is not new. It's been used in copper and uranium extensively. And so sometimes you have to freeze the areas around the deposit. Sometimes you have to hydraulically frack the deposit to open it up. And in a lot of cases, they use explosives to artificially create the permeation that's needed for the solution to physically touch the gold itself so it can dissolve it. So this is nothing new. It's off-the-shelf technology, and it's being used around the world today and in other types of mining. But you're never going to inject cyanide into gold deposits. But again, we've had goldfish swimming in ours, so this is something that we don't think is going to be any issues in getting it permitted.
And the last one so far, and the final one, with maybe a wrap-up question. Could you ask Dwayne about the share structure and ownership of shares, insider shares, et cetera?
Yes, the company has about 78 million shares outstanding. Over 10% is held institutionally, and over 10% is held by insiders.
All right. And let me get to the next batch here. This one's for me. How can we access your newsletter? It is with, just go to the main website, themoneyreport.com, pull down the subscribe button. You will get a sales letter and video that explains what we do, how we do it, and why. And then you can subscribe to that. I don't have a discount set up for people from MIF, but what I will do is if you become a subscriber, and once you are a member, you're allowed to send me 2 questions per month and I guarantee an answer. So just use the members only portal to send me an email and tell me that you purchased from the MIF conference, and I will autograph a book of your choice. It could be Second Chance or the Silver Manifesto, and I will mail that to you. I'll have my secretary mail it to you. So that'll be the bonus $40, $50 book mailed to you, personally signed for becoming a member of the Morgan Report through the MIF presentation. And I'll leave it at that. So I'm going to defer back to, well, here we go, 8 more questions. All right. So this one is for you, Tom. Omineca, I'm confused about the financial deal with the partner. Partner takes half, then you guys pay them $800 per ounce. Can you explain?
Yeah, sure. It's 850 Canadian per ounce. We were faced with the typical project. We're operating without a compliant 43-101 resource calculation. We understand what's there historically. We made the choice years ago to decide to go to bulk sample this project to determine, okay, is the historical information valid, relevant, whatever euphemism you want to use. We did that. We spent on project acquisition development about $25 million to get to the point that we said, wow, that's really great. It's incredibly high grade. And what we're still faced with the problem that if we were to try to define a 43-101 compliant resource, we would have to spend probably between $10 and $20 million of redrilling holes that have been done historically. So we said, let's just bite the bullet, and rather than hyper dilute the company and then still have to find a mining partner, why don't we just develop this relationship? And it was actually at the behest of the people that were working that they said, look, you're asking us to bring all this equipment. It's going to cost 15 to 20 million. We have all of this stuff. Why don't we just work it this way? We'll bring it. We'll fund the whole thing. We'll get it into the point where we're developing the bulk sample and presumably going on mining. We'll keep half the gold. Obviously, there's a cost on our half, so we shook on $850 an ounce. So that's how they become partners, is by just starting to develop the bulk sample and then presumably mining it down the paleo channel as we go. So everybody has a little bit of trouble getting their head around it. It's fairly simple. There's a deposit with a non-compliant resource on it. We want to start developing it. We've said, partners, bring all of your risk, your capital, your stuff, start doing it. You get to keep half of what you find, and you get to bill us for our house. So it reduces the risk on the Omineca side. Well, in fact, there is no risk because we don't have to do anything. And they've been working out there since late last fall, rehabilitating, getting ready to go. So I don't know how to explain it different than that. It's a true joint venture. They earn half of it by doing the work of it.
Next one is for you, Tom. How many shares does 49 North own of Omineca?
It has 44 million shares and a debenture that can be converted at 70 cents a share that would bring in another 11 million shares. So essentially right now it's 44 million shares, and that's because it was 49 North that primarily funded the original acquisition and development and the bulk sampling of the work that we've done so far.
And I'm going to try to sort these by company. So the next one, again, Tom, is what is the difference between the alluvial deposit that OMN is processing compared to the conglomerates that Novo Resources is looking to process in Western Australia?
Well, they're all placer deposits in that it was gold that was emplaced in bedrock at one point and has been erosionally removed or liberated from that bedrock and placed in deposits in the surrounding area. So genetically, how the gold got into the hard rock, don't know. Can't say what were the genetic processes of deposition in both cases. But ultimately, once gold has been eroded off the hillside and re-emplaced somewhere else, it's alluvial gold. The project in Australia is obviously much, much larger in scale. That is a truly, genuinely massive district scale project with some very interesting parts to it. I love the idea of them liberating gold using non-waterborne mechanical separation. I mean, that's an exciting, massive thing. So there's similarities in that it's all placer gold. There's differences in that we're traditional Canadian greenstone belt hosted hard rock gold that's been liberated.
Is an alluvial deposit the same as a conglomerate?
Not necessarily. A conglomerate, it can be, but it's not necessarily the same. A conglomerate is a recompacted and then re-emplaced sedimentary type of deposit. An alluvial deposit can be as simple as some beach sands, or go out to your local creek bed if you find gold in it. That's an alluvial gold deposit. It simply means gold that's been transported and re-emplaced by water.
Okay, so some of these I'll backtrack. Hopefully I'm not going to miss any of these questions. I did not catch the trading symbol for EnviroLeach. I'll do that for you, Dwayne. It is ETI on the CAD, the Canadian Stock Exchange, not the Vancouver. And if you're still confused, just go to the website. The company will have its symbol up there for both US and Canadians. I am a believer in EnviroLeach. However, what is happening with J-Bill, and how will EnviroLeach source their e-waste this year?
Okay, well, we've been working with J-Bill for going on 3 years now. We just completed, as I mentioned, a final 190,000 pound test for them over the last 6 months. There's some more material they want us to test, but you have to remember that J-Bill is one of the third largest electronics manufacturer in the world, but they do not have an established supply chain of printed circuit boards. And so, we're pushing forward with them. We will be working out some type of supply agreement with them. We're confident. But in the meantime, we're focusing on significantly larger groups that have already committed to this sector and have extensive supply chains in place. For example, one company does 450,000 tons a year. There's another U.S. company that's currently sending about 15,000 tons of printed circuit boards to smelters worldwide. So J-Bill is a good company. It's we value them as a partner, but as far as the supply of e-waste is concerned, we're focused on a number of alternate sources as well.
Might have answered this, Dwayne, but I'm having a little difficulty listening and reading these questions at the same time. Question for Dwayne: what time scale will a deal with an e-waste be announced? Weeks, months?
I think that I would hope that we'll see something in the next 30 days. With COVID, and I don't want to blame COVID for anything, but in reality, there's no schools in right now. There's no universities going. There's very few government offices. Hospitals aren't recycling. So the amount of printed circuit board waste or scrap has been significantly diminished, and the ability to import it. I mean, there was a couple of months ago, you couldn't even get a container. So that's been a bit of a sore spot. But again, you got to remember that the value of this company is not in the recycling. We're not a recycler. This is a technology company, and you have to place the value in what this technology can do for these large industry sectors.
Right. All right. This one's for me, and these are difficult to answer. Of course, being in the position I'm in and still being able to operate under some modicum of free speech. Peter asked me, what do you think of the fair value for GR Silver and Silver Elephant? Are they fair valued, overvalued, or what at the moment? Evaluating juniors or speculation is extremely difficult, if not impossible, if you're truthful about it. So the way I, first of all, break up the sector in the Morgan Report is top tier, where we can get a very clear picture of the dynamics of what the filings are from the companies and know if they're fair valued, overvalued, or whatever. Same with most of the mid-tier. So in other words, a producing company, we have a pretty good idea. My favorite model is actually a producer that has large exploration potential. So that would fit Omineca, for an example. They'll be producing, so we're going to call them a producer, even though it's just short ways off. And then they have that as a base. So now I've got something I can work with numbers-wise, but they have this huge potential that this Barkerville situation may be something similar to the mirrored aspect, where it could be much, much larger than just the alluvial side. So that is like one that I love because it has, production and exploration potential. As far as GR Silver and Silver Elephant, I've been with John on and off for a number of years, and he's restructured Silver Elephant. Sprott's come in with a great deal of money. As far as I'm concerned, taking a wag at it, I am a silver bull and I'm biased. I own these companies. I think they're both undervalued. You saw what Marcio showed you with Vizsla and some of these other companies in their peer group, and that was a comparison for you to take a look at what was available. And you kind of have to be able to read the tea leaves, knowing that some companies are more adept, let's say, at getting the idea out rather than the results out. So that's one of the reasons you might want to consider a subscription, but I'm not going to be a hard sell on that. So I'll leave it at that. As far as I'm concerned, there's so much potential in both those projects. I would say they're undervalued, but that's my take. What I want to leave you with is this. When I say speculate, I mean that. Bet money you can afford to lose. If and when these companies start to come to fruition, then I make a harder bet. I think I'm the only one in the industry that does this. So for a quick analogy, let's talk about the Kentucky Derby, and you put $20 on a 100-to-1 shot. And we're getting near the end of the race, and that horse is winning the race, and it's 4 furlongs ahead of everything else. Just pretend that you could go back to the betting window and put more money on that horse. Now, the odds are going to change from 100-to-1. They might go to 5-to-1, but you got almost a sure thing. Now you load up on that. You put $200 on it or $2,000 on it, and you go home and you collect your winnings. That's an analogy for what I've done in the past. Western Copper is an example. I think we hit under $1. Once it proved out what it had as a discovery, the stock price substantially increased. We more than doubled down. It was bought by Glamis, and that was bought by Gold Corp. That was a huge winner for us. So we've had several like that. And yes, I have had them go to zero. So I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm just saying the art of speculation is just that, an art, and you got to know what you're doing. If you bet the farm on a speculation because you love the management, you love the story, you love the location, you love it's near who and who or whatever, be my guest. But it's a good way, from my experience, to lose a great deal of money. You really want these things to be proven out before you make a heavy bet. But that's worked for me. And again, I learned that the hard way. So I'm sure there's other questions. We're not out of time yet. We have some more time. Donna says, let's see here. Sorry, folks, just give me a moment. These questions, I went through them to try to keep them so I could keep the same person online. Don asks again, what do you think the silver gold ratio will be? I've heard everything from 60-to-1 to 16-to-1. I wrote about that years ago in a public domain article called Engineering the Price of Gold. And in that article, I said, I think at the top of the market, we'll get to what I call the monetary or classic ratio, which is 16-to-1. And I said, in the event that silver really goes ballistic, in other words, monetary demand becomes excessive, and maybe there's a breakthrough technology that we use silver zinc batteries instead of lithium batteries in cell phones. So there's a huge new demand for the 5G phone, and you want a phone that you only have to charge once a week, and you're using silver in the battery rather than lithium. I'm just using that as an example, by the way. I'm just doing a conjecture here, but something like that, you might see 10-to-1. So are we at the correct gold-silver ratio? The answer is I do not think so, but I am a silver bull, and I'm extremely biased because I've studied the silver market so hard throughout my entire lifetime. So that's my thoughts on that question. Let me go back and see if I've got something else. Okay, this is for Tom. Tom, the placer mining or sampling is really interesting. I heard you say that you will do a series of crosscuts across the Paleo Channel, the bottom of the creek, to bring out the gold. By reading the website and other presentations you made, are you going to do more for about 2.4 kilometers? How many crosscuts? can we hope for about 174 ounces for each? How long will it take? What will you do with the money? Thank you.
Good questions. We're going to get what we get out of the crosscuts. The way it works is based on the historical information, we're pretty confident that the paleo channel extends 2.4 kilometers. Over that distance, there's a 1.5 kilometer area that has a currently non-compliant resource calculation. It would have been compliant back in 1986 when it was created by Wright Engineering using the USGS handbook for placer calculations. So the way we look, we get smaller and smaller. We're down to the 300 meters right in the middle. That's proximal to our first crosscut bulk sample. Now, we got lucky on coincidences. The first crosscut was 2.4 meters wide. The area of interest is 2.4 kilometers long. So we did 1/1000th of that, and we got 173 ounces of gold. The first 300 meters that we're going to do in the bulk sample that we're initiating this year will be 125 crosscuts, roughly 125 of those crosscuts. So you simply access from a lateral drift that runs along the deposit, and you poke in and you do the crosscuts. So we're going to do 125 of them. If we were so fortunate as to have them be exactly the same as the last one, great, you could do that math. They won't be. There'll be some with more gold, some with less. What's really important is that for at least to us, in the first 300 meters of development, there are 5 depressions in the bottom of the old creek bed, and we know the gold settles to the bottom. So we expect that we could have some areas of significantly higher gold. We will know that when we go through them with our mining partners. The next question was, what are you going to do with the money? It's pretty clear that whatever the first ounce that comes out of that deposit is going to be profitable for us, because our partner is going to take half the gold they recover. They're going to give us our half. They're going to staple a bill to our half at 850 Canadian an ounce. So right now, with $2,700 gold today, we're going to make about $1,800 on the first ounce and any ounces that come after that. So we're excited about that prospect for gold in hand this year and near-term cash flow out of the bulk sample. What are we going to do with the money? We've been very clear. We're limited with how much we can produce, just the physical material handling out of the system, because we've got a decline that we don't plan on expanding. Whatever we get out of it, we're going to take half of that and use it for exploration on the hard rock. And the other half of it, we're going to put back into the shareholders' hands through random special dividends. So whatever we get, that's how we're going to treat it.
Thank you, Tom. John, got a question for you, and that is Bolivia. There's always a little bit of hesitation about the Bolivia situation. Would you please address that for our viewers?
Yes, well, David, politics swing like pendulums. For the earlier silver investors, recall before Evo Morales came on, Bolivia was ranking on par with Peru. You have the Apex Silvers. Tom Kaplan made $1 billion of Bolivia silver stories, and all companies like Orvana, of which likes of John Embry were touting, and it was one of the darlings of the street. So our team were in Bolivia before Evo Morales came on, and Evo was for protectionism. Now, Bolivia has had almost 15 years of Evo's reign and had enough of it. So Evo was kicked out of the country and exiled out of Bolivia. And the country now is an open capitalist society, firmly aligned with the likes of Peru, Colombia, and Brazil. And Bolivia received the U.S. aid in the first time in over a decade, and U.S. is contemplating opening U.S. embassy in Bolivia for the first time in over 15 years. And on the note of Peru and Brazil and Colombia, Bolivia actually, in many ways, are better than those countries. It has better infrastructure, it has power and road, and it doesn't have safety issues like Colombia. So in many ways, I think Bolivia is actually better to operate than aforementioned countries. And soon enough, I think that the investor is going to graduate, is going to come to realize that, and hence creates the opportunity. Secondly, David, Bolivia is the 6th largest silver producer in the world, despite lack of foreign investment. So it is an elephant country. Within 200 kilometers of Culacayo, you probably have 15 to 20 mines producing upwards of 50 million ounces a year today. All the major traders, Trafigura, Glencore, Luz Travis, Transamine, they're all operating in the area. So we're in the elephant country. And you have the likes of New Pacific Metals, which is a $1 billion market cap, Pan American Silver. They're operating quite peacefully, as well as Sumitomo. So because of the nature of it being geographically endowed and mineral rich, forces an opportunity to look for really elephants that are not available elsewhere. I mean, for example, The Paca project we have has silver grab samples over 500 grams on surface. And when Trafigura visited our project, they shaken in disbelief because nowhere else in the world do you have this kind of things. And not to mention that maybe there's some other silver deposits, which is very thin layer of overburden, of which never been subject to modern exploration techniques. It's like IPO drilling. So, and also because that the company, Silver Elephant, our team has been there since 2005, and we have extensive network of contacts. And we are political neutral. We have friends and allies on both sides, and a database of over 100 projects which we're evaluating. We just acquired the Triumphal project, which we think can easily turn into 1 million ounce gold. That is only the start of something. You have a management that's kind of shared the same view as David Morgan. We think have a huge wave of silver bull coming, and that we're taking advantage of the opportunity. And you will not be surprised to see that the Triumphal is one of the several additional acquisitions that the company is going to be embarking upon. So we like Bolivia. We think risk is manageable, and I think there's going to be a re-rating of the country as time goes by. Back to you, David.
Very good and thorough answer. Thank you, John. Marcio, we are going to finish with you. And this is a forward-looking statement, but you have multiple successes, and I just will repeat how pleased we were to put Silvercrest on the Morgan Report list pretty early on and had substantive gains. What is your thought on GR Silver versus Silvercrest on where you are now and what you think could happen?
I was the first banker to provide real capital to the founders of Silvercrest mines in 2005 to help them to build the Santa Helena mine, to the point that they invited me to leave the bank after 10 years to become a shareholder and work with them to sell the company to First Majestic, and we create a spin-off of Silvercrest Metals, a great success. But going to the core of your question, how do I think this company would compare with that other one, the Silvercrest Metals? I think we are at the early stage as a history, not saying that's the same rock type, the same vein, but on the valuation when Silvercrest Metals was in 2016, still early days. And I'm saying that because it has been only 4 months since we bought Plomosas. And in 4 months, we have discovered already 11 additional areas to drill, to the point that we moved a lot of geologists to the site. And we didn't stop during the pandemic, because we have the camp for 120 people, 15 geos on site, 3 drill rigs, and bringing more with the money in the bank. So I hope I answered your question.
I think you did an excellent job. I'm not in control of the questions. I tried to get everybody in there, and we are supposed to end at about 1 minute from now. I want to thank every one of the companies that I invited for your expertise and your great presentations. I want to thank the audience in general for your attention, and hi-ho silver away. We'll leave it at that, and hopefully we'll get to meet face-to-face in the not-too-distant future. Hopefully this whole CV thing will subside and we'll get back to a more normal situation. Time will tell. Thank you very much for your attention.